Hey, greetings, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen from juneallen.net, and I teach black women how to heal from the impact of racism with racial sobriety and revolutionary black self-love. So today, I've not been on for a few days. I needed a break after the conference. It totally wiped me out. But anyway, I have got some gifts for you today. I'm not going to be long on today. I just wanted to let you know that I have got some racial sobriety gifts for you. After I did the conference, there was loads of sessions. It was really empowering. It's the first one, so I learned a lot from it as well. But I wanted to give something back. I wanted to give something back to those of you that weren't able to make the conference. I wanted to give you a little snippet of some of the things that we were talking about, some of the stuff that we learned, some of the stuff that was being spoken about. I wanted to jump on and give you an opportunity to get your hands on some of the stuff that we were talking about. So I want to give you six of the sessions from the Racial Sobriety Conference, 5 of the speakers, and one masterclass. So I'm gonna just walk through the 5 masterclasses and the 5 speakers and the one masterclass, so that you've got a bit of an idea as to what to expect. So just to give you a little bit of background about me, I have been in recovery since I went to my first meeting in 2009, got my sponsor in 2010 from various addictions. My core addiction is relationship addiction, codependency, all of that kind of stuff. Just went into recovery in 2010 and I got my sponsor in 2010 and have been in there ever since. And I have had a really amazing time in there. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about trauma. I learned a lot about boundaries. I learned a lot about self-esteem. But what was missing from the 12-step process, after I went through all of the steps and after about 2 years of being quite committed to what I was doing, I realised that the cultural context was missing. There was no real conversations around the impact of racism and the fact that we were still living under the system of racism. How do I deal with that in terms of my recovery? What does that look like? And I found it very difficult to talk about it at first, but as I started talking to a lot more other black people that were in recovery and reading a lot more books, I did some training, a little bit of training as a psychotherapist and stuff, which was ongoing. I learned about the whole concept of racial sobriety, or I kind of coined the term racial sobriety as it relates to being in recovery. And it was a game changer. It was an absolute game changer, because then I was really able to see how racism, the impact of racism, had an impact on my acting out behaviours, or my acting in behaviours, however you want to, however you want to define it. But all of the dysfunctional behaviours that I had was as a result of unheard pain around trauma. And I learned that was the stuff that was driving all the dysfunction in my family and stuff as well. And for a lot of black people, for a lot of us that have got racial trauma, or we've got a history of slavery and all of that kind of stuff, those conversations, or that conversation around the link between addiction and racism, is something that just kept coming up. And the more I spoke about it, the more people started to relate, and the more I kind of made that connection and started to explain all of that to people, the light bulbs just kept going off. And so I just kept talking about it, and then I started talking more publicly about my recovery and stuff like that. And a lot of people started to identify with a lot of the stuff that I was saying. So hence, here I am, 9 years later. And the conference was a celebration of that. It was my 9-year sobriety birthday on the 1st of June. So yay, 9 years sober. So really happy about that. And so the 9-year birthday was a celebration of those 9 years of being in the rooms. And so I called in some of my fellows that have been doing this work also, the racial sobriety work. I spoke to some therapists and speakers, and just some really amazing people that I've had the pleasure to work with over the years. And so I wanted to share all those goodies with you all. I wanted to share all those gifts with you all. So I put the conference together and gave people an opportunity, whether you're in recovery or you think you might be an addict. And I put a whole series of live streams together. And just created a space for people to come and explore their own addictions as it relates to racism, or if people think they might be addicted that have never ever been in recovery before, to create some sort of platform and some sort of beginner's place for people to be able to start to explore all of that stuff. So I'm really, really happy that I did it, and I'm so grateful and blessed to be sober in recovery today. So let's talk about these 6 racial sobriety gifts. So the first one, this speaker's talking about the power of cultural top line. So if you're in recovery, you'll understand that you know what a bottom line is. A bottom line is something related to your dysfunctional, your addictive behaviours, and a bottom line is what you set around stopping those behaviours. So a top line is about doing nurturing behaviours. Is the opposite. So they're nurturing, loving, compassionate behaviours that are going to enhance your recovery, that are going to enhance your well-being, that are going to enhance your self-esteem, all of that good stuff. So this particular speaker was talking about the types of cultural things that she does. Some of it she does with her child and stuff. It's really sweet the way she talks about her daughter and how racial sobriety has really helped her to build her self-esteem, and how she's passed that on with her daughter as well. So if you're interested in getting these goodies that I have for you, if you go to heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net. The link is in the description. So that is the first one, is the power of cultural top and bottom line. So that is, really, really great. The second one was about, the second speaker talked about self-acceptance and food addiction. Now this one was probably the most popular. And I think the reason for that is, food addiction for a lot of black women is hidden, I think, in our culture a lot of times, because food very much is the way that we express love for each other. It's a place of community. Black people love to eat. We love to eat. And so, if a lot of us are, in that situation where we eat a lot and, maybe we're overweight or whatever it is, or we become unhealthy around our eating, because you don't necessarily have to be overweight to be unhealthy, and you can be thin and still unhealthy. But if it becomes a problem, then, it's addiction is part of the conversation. And I think because a lot of us are in pain, we can use food. We can almost hide in the food addiction in our culture, because food is such a huge part of our culture. So I think, and Bell Hooks talks about this as well, because there's a book club that I do, a Bell Hooks book club, a monthly book club, and we did do one session there was one chapter on addiction. She talked a lot about that, the whole thing around, black women sort of hiding their food addictions because it's part of our culture, and how a lot of us, a lot of our families and stuff don't tend to acknowledge the fact that food addiction even is in our communities, because food is something that is kind of celebrated. So a lot of us are walking around with food addictions, and we don't even know whether we're bulimic, anorexic, or whatever it is, however it manifests. A lot of us find it hard to kind of recognize it. So the fact that there's somebody who's speaking on this topic, that's one of I've noticed on the videos that this is one of the ones that's been watched quite a lot. Hi, thanks for joining. So the whole thing around self-acceptance and food addiction, that was a really very powerful one. So again, if you're interested in that, click the link in the bio and you get to watch that one for free. The third speaker talks about unworthiness and under-earning. Now this one is I think it's so rampant in our community, but a lot of us don't really understand it. So when we talk about obviously we understand what unworthiness is, just low self-esteem and stuff like that, but the under-earning bit of it is a consequence of our low self-esteem. So when we under-earn, it basically we're not using our gifts. A lot of us are in jobs that are underpaid, that we're not using our gifts. We ended up in jobs because it's just paying the bills or whatever. So we're not actually celebrating our gifts. We're not honouring our gifts. And so we're stuck in a kind of perpetual state of underbeing. Number one, because the system again is racist as well. So we sort of try to do our work inside a system that doesn't want us to thrive. That's part of how the system of racism operates when it comes to the workplace. So that kind of creates a feeling of powerlessness, helplessness around our work. So a lot of us find that difficult. So then what happens is, because work becomes very difficult for us in terms of showing up inside of these systems, we kind of give up on ourselves. So the unworthiness and under earning speaker is a really powerful space to be able to talk about, you know, how that manifests and what we can do about it, because there are money programs out there as well. There are money recovery programs out there that can help us to understand a lot of our under earning. And obviously the discussion that we have with the speaker in this instance is about how, you know, in racism and our low self-esteem kind of perpetuates our ability to kind of abandon ourselves around our work and abandon ourselves around celebrating our gifts. So that one is really, really important. So if you're in business, you're an entrepreneur, you struggle with low self-esteem, you struggle with feeling guilty about charging and all of that kind of stuff, the under earning one is actually a really important one. So that's number 3. So the next one is around trauma, codependency, and relationship addiction. This one, oh my gosh, it was such a powerful speech. This one, this lady, she just talks about how she was just unable to connect in relationships because of the painful relationship that she had with her mum. So she wasn't able to. She just kept finding herself in relationships with men that were just not available. They just were not available emotionally, spiritually, whatever. They just weren't available. But she kept choosing men that were unavailable because that's what she was taught. She was taught when she was young that, because she hadn't healed the relationship with her mum at the time, she kept just falling into these relationships with men that just were not available. So again, if you're in relationships or you keep finding yourself in relationships with men, or if it's the other way around, with whoever, in terms of you just keep finding yourself in relationships with people that were just not available, or if you keep finding yourself in relationships that are abusive, codependent, all that kind of stuff, and I relate to all of that. This particular speaker talking about trauma and codependency and stuff it was really powerful, and she was very honest and everything. It was just really, really great to hear her. So yeah, if you've got codependency issues, abandonment issues in relationships, or even in friendships as well, it can be any. You don't have to be in a relationship to be able to get the benefit out of this particular speaker. So yeah, if that's something that resonates with you, then definitely you want to watch that one. You want to listen to that one. Okay, so the next one, number 5, is interracial sponsorship. So in recovery, the way that you go through the 12 steps is with somebody that's been through the steps before you have. So that's what you call a sponsor. So this person is, they've been through the recovery step, or they're just a bit further ahead than you. And they basically take you through a set of questions. You might end up just kind of chatting to them as well to go through the questions and all of that kind of stuff. Hi, thanks for joining. So you go through that process with somebody, but then what happens is if that sponsor is white, it becomes very difficult for you as a black person to have those conversations in your step work with that person, because obviously the racial element of recovery is not part of those questions a lot of the times. And that power dynamic can be quite painful, because when you share your step work, you write out your questions and everything, and you have to share that with your sponsor. You share some really vulnerable things, and if there is stuff in your step work that's around racism and stuff like that, it can be very, very difficult to share that stuff with somebody else, because that your white sponsor more than often is not doing the racial sobriety work, which means it's going to leave you in a situation which is very vulnerable, and it's just not appropriate. It's unsafe. It becomes unsafe to have those conversations with a white sponsor, because they're just not going to understand. If they're not doing the work, they're just not going to understand. So this particular speaker, she just talks about the importance of having a person of colour to have those conversations with, and she talks about her own experience with white sponsors and the kind of racism that she's experienced, which is very kind of it's quite insidious. It's never overt, it's never overt. It's always kind of covert racism. And so it was just interesting how this speaker was kind of talking about the different insidious ways that it plays itself out. So if you are in recovery and you have a white sponsor and you want to kind of make sense of what's going on, this particular speaker is really going to help you with that. And the last one, which actually is a masterclass, so they're the 5 speakers. So the last masterclasses which I did was about how to set up your own people of colour meeting in your primary fellowship. So the reason for that is a lot of times the identification within that specific fellowship is really important. So if you're in AA as an example, you need to be able to identify the AA characteristics and other people that act out with alcohol. Okay, but if you have a people of colour meeting in AA, that means that you can link the you can make the connection between racism and your acting out through drink. So there's even more identification. And then obviously if you're in a room, if you're in a space with other people of colour, especially if it's a boundaried space with other people of colour, so there's no white people in there, that means you can really explore it without having to worry or think about what anyone else is on about. You can just, or what white people are going to say, or what they're going to think of you, or can I really say that? Because I've seen that happen so many times in meetings that are mixed. It just becomes a codependent mess, basically. So it's important that, and I do talk about that in this training. So the importance of having a people of colour meeting within your primary fellowship allows you to get the identification with other people of colour from the position of your primary addiction. So so that's the 6. There's the 6 racial sobriety gifts that I'm giving you from the conference. So if you missed the conference, or you couldn't get in, or you couldn't afford it, or whatever it is, there's an opportunity now for you to get those 6 gifts from me to you. And it was a great experience. So if you're interested in those, if you resonate with any of those things that I said, click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. I've got one last thing to share with you, is that I'm bringing back the podcast. I'm bringing back the recovery podcast. I haven't done any podcasts for quite a long time, especially the ones around recovery. So I've decided that as a result of the conference, that I'm actually going to bring back the podcast. I'm going to start recording some more sessions, and that is going to be the space where it's going to be specifically around recovery, because sometimes, the language is different. There are different things that people are going to identify with and all of that, and I think that it's important to have that separate space. And I love podcasting anyway. They're quite I can get really intimate, as well. I can get quite emotionally intimate on the podcast, and I think for people listening that can be quite nice as well, because I know that coming on live streams and stuff might not be appropriate for people obviously wanting to keep their anonymity and all of that kind of stuff. So they don't necessarily want to share it on live stream. It's okay, Rihanna, you haven't missed a lot. We can catch up. We can still catch up. If there's anything that specifically that you want, that you think you've missed, just inbox me. But you haven't missed anything. You can always watch the replay as well on this. So you can get the 6 sessions for free. If you click the link in the bio, you can get the 6 sessions for free. If you do want to get the rest of the replays from the conference, there is an opportunity for you to get those as well. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to have the 6. And enjoy those and see how you feel about it. If you love them, you can get the 6. You can get not the 6, you can get the other trainings. And there's about 15 other trainings, as well as the conference. And I go through all of the things around recovery. What is the meeting? What is recovery? How do I know if I'm an addict? There's loads of information and stuff in the actual bundle itself. So click the link in the bio and sign up for the 6 gifts, and then obviously you can upgrade if you want to and get the rest of the replays from the session. So don't worry about anything. So message me if there's any other questions or anything else. So that's it. I just wanted to jump on and let you know about that really, really quick gifts that I have for you. If you've got any questions or anything, you can inbox me and let me know. Tomorrow I'm actually going to be doing the first of the podcast, which I'm going to be sharing about. What am I going to be sharing about? I'm going to be sharing about some of the lessons I've learned, actually. Some of the lessons that I've learned over the 9 years, just to kind of wrap up the conference and stuff like that. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. I'll see you tomorrow, not live but on podcast. So you have to keep sign up for one of the gifts, and then obviously you'll be on the mailing list, and then you'll get all the notifications and stuff. So all right, so have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care, bye.